Welcome to Dev Dive Episode 5, League of Legends. We're here today with Katie Anthony, aka KateyKhaos from Riot. Welcome to the show, Katie. Can you tell us what you do at Riot?
Hey, yeah. So I am a senior QA analyst on the skins team. I've been there for almost 5 years now. Primarily, like my job is helping to test not only our skins that we come out with, but icons, wards, emotes, loading screen borders, pretty much all of the cosmetic content that our game currently provides.
That's fantastic. So you're a bit of a public figure in the community now.
Yeah.
Is that really something that somebody at your role does commonly, or did you kind of just fall into that position via Twitter, Twitter and stuff?
Yeah,
like that?
it's kind of weird. So everyone at Riot is encouraged to reach out, talk to players. What that means per person can definitely vary. So you have some Rioters who are really into Reddit. That's kind of where their primary like audience for what they work on lies. More so the boards for others. Twitter's a big one. For me, it all started from Olive Skins QA makes PvE boards posts for every skin that we do. From there, we are supposed to interact, explain why we do something, why we don't do something, trying to elaborate on the feedback. So if someone tells me it sucks, I can, say, hey, can you tell me why? Like what's not working for you? Kind of trying to absorb that and pull that from them.
Yeah.
But we kind of didn't have anyone too hard on Twitter at the time. And I felt like it was a really cool platform to kind of have that one-on-one interaction with players, more so in live time. And part of what came with that was being able to provide the turnaround shots for all the skins, because Movie and other people would use the 3D model viewer that would pull the models before the PvE build came out. Now, cool, works for most champions, but when you have someone like KateyKhaos, who is entirely VFX, he looks like a starfish when it's just like he's kind of just all sprawled out. So it looked really bad. And for me, I went to my team and said, this isn't really a cool first impression. And this was prior to us having the cool PvE teaser videos. So from there, I just kind of wanted to interact with players on a one-on-one. I thought it was a really cool opportunity. So I just kind of ran with it.
Yeah, we hear Larry, and we're here with Larry. I don't really introduce him because he's sort of a constant on the show, but Larry is always talking about how he is constantly communicating with people who may be asking him questions that he doesn't like the tone of, but he responds in ways that he thinks will result in the best answer. So if somebody says, hey, blank sucks, why does it suck so much? Larry will say, well, why does it suck? Or why do you think it sucks? And stuff like that.
Like I think for a lot of players, some of it comes from like they don't think they're gonna get a reply, so they're really like combative about stuff. But like once you kind of call them out and you're like, hey, I totally understand where you're coming from. Can you kind of give me more info? They're like, really sorry for being mean. Like I'm just passionate about this thing, but here's what I really mean by what I said.
Yeah, everyone gets a lot nicer when they're actually talking to somebody.
Yeah, like you feel like your voice is being heard, and it's kind of like not meant to be a call out, but that's kind of what it is. Where you're like, hey, I want to hear you out, but I need you to kind of be more level-headed with me, and we need to just like chat this one through.
Definitely,
yeah, makes sense.
So we've had a few QA folks for champions on the show before. Riot Ranger and Jeffrey Doring, aka JD, or Nekamaru.
Yeah, I know those guys.
What is the difference between somebody who works on QA for skins and somebody who works on the QA for champions?
So we work pretty closely together on a lot of things. Ranger and I specifically, we worked more recently with LeBlanc mains because there was a lot of bugs with the revert, and at the same time we were working on program LeBlanc. So I said, hey, let's buddy up, try and fix some of these bugs so that when we move forward, we've got a clean slate. So the next LeBlanc skin will have pretty much everything that she should. There shouldn't be any like weird bugs that one skin has, one skin doesn't. The primary difference in terms of just content itself is skins works on all the new skins. whereas champion works on literally champions, new champions that are coming up. But when they do VGUs, they're the team that actually takes all of our existing skins and kind of gives them a facelift, which is really confusing when it comes time for a rework. Because like Kale and Morgana, a lot of players are coming to me and I'm like, sorry, this isn't one of my projects, but let me, give you to somebody who is working on it.
I see that a lot on Twitter. You've become sort of a hub for transitioning questions to the right people. And I see it's like, maybe Kiwi Kid could help out with this, or Ranger, or whoever else.
I feel like the old school like phone operators with like the little plugs, and I'm just like, no, you go here, like let me get you to where you need to go. But like Champion's a little bit more like functionality focused than us, where we're a little bit more like aesthetics focused, just because like they've already done all the hard work for functionality. Like the kit works, everything's good to go, whereas for us, we're like, how do we make it pretty? And like, now that it's pretty, does it look okay? Does it does it read right? So they're a little bit more like on the deep dive of, does this stuff work? And we're like, okay, you gave us something really cool, how can we decorate it?
Awesome. To jump in really quick there, doing functionality testing, pretty straightforward, right? Like a champion is supposed to do X. When you press this button, it does this, right? Like it's pretty binary. But whenever you go into something like, does this look right? That's a little subjective. You know what I mean? Would you be able to kind of go into maybe some of the bars or definitions when you say, does this look right whenever you are QAing a skin?
Yeah, so some of the main things that we're looking for is, does the champion or do the spells read well from game height and speed? So meaning, does it pop off of Summoner's Rift? Can you actually read what's going on? Does this read like the champion itself? We've had instances where we have this really cool idea, but it just doesn't read right. Someone like, Lux or Ezreal, whose like silhouette may not be as iconic as someone like Cho'Gath. Like you see that coming down the lane, you know what that is. But something that has like more of a generic weapon, like a sword, it can be a little bit more difficult. So that's kind of like the readability for what good looks like there. We also care a lot about like the pillars. And what I mean by pillars is, when we create a skin, we have, what we set out to accomplish when we make this skin. So if we're talking arcade, like arcade's a very clear, like pixelated retro idea. So if we're not really hitting that, we can say that's not what our good would look like. So if we've got like stuff that looks really modern and spacey, and we're like, but it's like space games, and we're like, no, it's not the arcade look that we're going for.
Right.
In addition to that, like good looking like gameplay clarity is pretty important for us as well. So we're talking, if I have a Morgana Q coming at you, does it look like Morgana's Q? Like, is the hitbox right for it? Like, I know it's going to sit you there for a day or two, but like if it's coming towards you, do you know that it's going to happen? It's a lot of artistic feedback, so it's really important when we do our reviews that we have artists from every discipline. So if we're talking like the 3D artists, kind of all getting together and talking, they have that feedback, especially when it comes to shading. If you've never noticed, our models are shaded light to dark, top to bottom, and that's primarily to pull them off of the map. So you'll see like the tops of the champions are a little bit brighter, whereas when you get like knees down, they are a little bit darker, so that your focus is on the top of the champion and not just all over the place.
Cool.
So coming back a little ways, something that we like to ask most of the people who join us on this show is, how do they got their start in the industry? So, you said you've been at Riot for almost 5 years now. Where did you start before
almost
that?
5 years. Yeah, Larry and I were in D-Noob together. It's cute.
Yeah.
We're all friends. But I started at Turbine, actually, outside of Boston. My friend actually already worked there, and he said, hey, our team is working on a game called Infinite Crisis. It's pretty, it's a MOBA pretty much along the same lines of League. I think that this is something you'd be interested in. They're looking to hire somebody who would test skins and champions. Yeah, Rift Infinite Crisis in the channel. Yeah. So I said, sure. It was like a full-time job with benefits. And I said, why not? I'll give it a shot. And that's kind of where I started. I did similarly what I do now. It was a little more black box testing, which is me running test suites, test plans, test cases all day. So basically what Larry had mentioned earlier, like, does the Q work? Does the W work? A lot more like manual scripted testing than what I do now, but it was a good start. It was a good break-in for me.
Whenever, and this actually kind of came up a little bit, whenever we talk about, getting into the industry, and people always go, oh, well, how did you get into it? Really what they're asking is, how can I get into it? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a polite way of asking.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough one because I feel bad when people ask me because I'm like, I'm kind of a weird case. Like, I went to school for graphic design. I didn't plan on going into games. I worked at a magazine doing graphics before then, so I'm kind of a hodgepodge of how I ended up here. I would say it's good to branch out your network when you're in college. If you have like friends of friends who know people, trying to network to like at least have contacts. I know a lot of people who work at Riot and other various companies who've got their start just from knowing somebody and being recommended. So that's a huge thing. So going to places like GDC, any sort of like conferences where games are being discussed, especially if you have recruiters. A lot of recruiters there are happy to give you feedback. GDC, for example, a lot of places, if you bring your portfolio, they'll take a look and give you a lot of really great, honest feedback. Another thing I can recommend is doing game jams. A lot of places you can find them locally. They're all over the place. But it's a really good opportunity to get together over the course of about 48 hours and try and bang out a game with a bunch of people. I did one in college. It's super stressful, super fun. And you learn a lot about the whole process and see where like T-shaping, so learning how to do more than one craft, can come in super handy. But also gives you kind of an insight into what it's like to make games. Like, it's hectic. You really need to know how to work in groups. It's not a solo project like a lot of people can tend to be, like, I'm a 3D artist, so I just make models. It's like, but we have to work together to make this look cohesive and fun.
Right.
Also, depending on like where you wanna end up, having a good portfolio is super important. And for QA, I highly suggest trying to find maybe a smaller studio to start at to get experience, even if it's like a 6-month contract. Just learning the basics is super huge. For Riot, we can teach you how to use our tools. We can teach you like how we do things, but it's really good to have that solid baseline, like that solid vocabulary. And for QA2, there's also official certification that you can get. It's called ISTQB training. It teaches you all the basics, all the vocab, and I think it's definitely worthwhile if it's like a career path that you're serious about. If you don't have QA experience specifically, having a certification like that really shows your dedication.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about game jams, there's actually been a few fantastic games that have actually been born from those game jams. One of the ones that I'm very passionate about, Hollow Knight, was started at a game jam back in 2015 or something like that, and it was born there, and it sort of evolved out of that idea. But those game jams aren't just places where you can hone your skills and like show off your stuff. They can also be a good place to have a birth of an actual good video game.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like creating a demo, essentially, in a lot of ways, and then you can kind of polish it up and take it from there if that's the route you want to take.
So jumping in a little bit, taking a quick step back, we're pretty familiar with the space of game development and what QA is and stuff like that, just because we're all friends and we talk. But someone coming in new may be like, the fuck are they talking about? The fuck is QA? So could we take a moment to say, okay, Katey, from your experience, what would you say QA is? What QA is and how is it important to game development?
So QA is kind of the underdog, I feel like, and people in a lot of places can underappreciate, depending on the style and the workflow that they use. Riot is a lot more agile, which means that we're doing all of our moving parts at once so that it's less waterfall, which would mean like, well, the concept is done, so now we go to modeling. Well, gotta wait till the modeling's fully done before we can start VFX. And then like this big pile gets thrown over to QA and they're like, test my stuff. And we're like, okay, great, cool. Riot's a little bit different where we kind of just all have our hands in, elbows deep at the same time, which is really cool. So QA is kind of like the gatekeeper of quality. Like you've probably been gatekept from Diamond. This is the gatekeeping of quality.
I've been gatekept from Platinum. I can't even get all the way up there.
Hey, I'm a proud member of the Iron tier. All right, so.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, like being on an agile team is great because QA can kind of talk about quality from start to finish at that point. So we're talking, Thresh. If Thresh comes out with a new skin. So let's say like High Noon, for example, QA can call out every Thresh skin that we have, his shoulder pauldrons, they clip a lot. What can we do to minimize that? Or, hey, Sacred Sword Janna had that really cool wavy hair because her rig was a little bit different than what she usually has. Can we take that? Can we use that for the new Bewitching Janna? I'm like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That eliminates a lot of those issues that traditional like waterfall QA wouldn't see until the end. And at that point, it can be really hard for us to change those things, which, it's kind of crappy. But we get to be the voice of the player from literally concept until it's shipped out the door. In addition to just the like quality, gatekeeper, make sure there's no bugs, all fun and games. For me too, it's also being the voice of the player. So if we say, players are really unhappy about this, can we talk about it? A lot of our changes from PvE are based off of player feedback, whether it's color changes or gameplay concerns. Like those are all things that we definitely want to call out and provide to our devs so that they have that information. For me, it's a little bit more of like management of, other testers. But in a lot of places, you're also just running through test plans, like I said, just kind of like the basic stuff. But QA in the perfect world works alongside their producers and alongside their dev managers. We call it the trifecta. So you've got someone who's like leading the charge, someone who's leading the charge of the product, and then like QA just kind of like houses with them to make sure that all of those things can get done.
Cool. But bouncing off that, what type of person, based on your experience, do you think would enjoy QA? Just like analytical or what qualification what characteristics do you think?
For me, I think it's someone who likes a challenge. I would say that QA is definitely a challenge, will definitely like expand your mind in like terms of trying to solve really complex problems. So if you're the type of person who likes to understand the root cause of something, you like to understand how it broke, how to fix it, and why. That's a really, really good headspace. I like to also say like, do you like spot the difference? Do you like being able to like find out what's wrong? Like those are the kinds of things that like QA is kind of all about, where you're like, hey, these are the changes here. Are these lateral changes, visually or artistically? Like those are the kinds of people that I think would really enjoy it. If you want to work on something like skins, having that art passion is definitely something you would enjoy because you can hop into meetings and say, I don't think this purple is really cool. You can throw out your ideas, you can brainstorm, which is a really cool opportunity. Now, if you're more of like a technical QA, some back-end stuff might be better for you, maybe like client-side stuff. If you're more interested in scripting and coding, designer stuff is really cool, like maybe champion side. There's a lot of different routes you can take depending on like where your actual like interests lie outside of just being like a curious person.
You want to take the next question, Larry?
I'm trying to think of where to go from there because you answered it really well. Damn it.
Yeah, I think I think that was very concise and very well answered.
But let's get into more about like you personally.
Oh no.
Sorry, your personal point of view when it comes to your job and your work. Let me rephrase that. So what would you say is your favorite part of doing your job or going to work? So like if you were to say, hey, you woke up in the morning, I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to go to the office so that I can what? Like what would you say?
My favorite days are PBE days. Like, hands down, I call it Internet
Really?
Christmas. Yeah, I actually call it Internet Christmas. It's very exciting to be working on a project for, sometimes months at a time, sometimes almost a year, like Elementalist Lux. And to just kind of see like those first reactions, it's like our team handing players like something that's gift wrapped, and like they open it and like really seeing their expressions for the first time is very, very exciting to me. So when those PBE videos, the previews go out, it's just me glued to like tons of social channels to see, like how excited people are, what they like, what they don't like, and then of course that fan art that streams in, like Wanda-kun is like within 15 minutes
so
she's got something
fast.
whipped out.
She
which
is so
super cool.
fast.
Yeah. So I always look forward to like seeing what she comes up with. But there's a lot of really cool community art that comes from it. But it's just super exciting. It happens pretty much every 2 weeks, so it's something cool to look forward to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite
right.
parts from the community standpoint. Seeing new stuff
So
come up on
exciting.
PBE and checking it out.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised that PBE days is something you really look forward to. I mean, not that it's bad, it's just unexpected.
It can be really stressful sometimes, like especially if you're not sure if someone's going to like what you necessarily put out.
Mhm.
Something like Odyssey and BMO are really fun because they skip PvE entirely.
Right.
So that was just like a whole new level of Internet Christmas. That was also very stressful and like a very, very technically challenging project, but also something that I think was pretty fun and worthwhile to see players like, how did you sneak this past us? Like, it's a whole event, like one skin, I get it, but one whole event, how? We're just like, magic.
That Riot Games magic.
It hides next to the spaghetti.
It hides in the spaghetti.
You just gotta go digging. It's like one of those double dare challenges, and you're like,
Just because you mentioned it, who's your favorite community artist?
oh no, Larry, don't do me like this.
Okay. Quantifying this question. Who is one of your favorite community artists?
No. I want to know who your favorite. You know what? You can take the easy way out.
All right. God, I'm gonna butcher his name. Sun
I think I know. Yep.
Sun Wukong.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love him.
He is definitely up there for me. I think it's just a mix of like his style is really cute, but also the way that he portrays some of the characters I think is really funny. There's a lot of humor behind it, but it's with like such simple facial expressions and just like a simplistic look, but it's just so there's just like a lot of emotion behind it. Like the ones with Diana and Leona are always really funny. I ship Jin and Nami now thanks to him because Nami just like squirts water on everybody, and I think that's hilarious. But yeah, he's definitely like up there for me.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love his artwork.
What was actually who was it was funny. I'm hoping to potentially ask him if he wants to be on the cast as well. Thomas Ranby. He was one of my favorite community artists, and I was really happy when I was able to show some of his work on Champions. I was like, "Hey guys, check this out!" And they're like, "Oh, dude, right?" And we got him working on the Maokai update. I remember that was one of his first.
Oh my god, the long cats.
Yes. Oh, dude. So yeah, I watched him for a little while. So as a quick shout out to some of you artists out there, it like we do look at the community art that you produce, and if we see things that hit the quality bar, that are in line, that really show a great understanding of not just what it means to be a good concept artist or a good illustrator, etc., but shows a deep understanding of what it means to understand Riot's style, you will be noticed. There's a lot of you out there that we know by name and by work. So
oh yeah, we share all the time. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times a new skin comes out, and in our skins channels on Slack, it's just all of us just posting like, look how cute this is. When Winter Wonder Soraka came out, there was so much fan art. So I would wake up in the morning and the channel would just be spammed with like tweets and Instagram posts from all the fan art. And it's really rewarding to see, and it's just super exciting to see like how passionate people are about it and how much people really like something.
Yeah.
So going way back, what got you into video games as a whole and League of Legends specifically?
Oh geez. So I started playing games when I was probably about 6-ish. My cousins had a Nintendo, and they left me when they went to school. So I was at my grandmother's house, and they left me with the Nintendo, and I was like, all right, don't know what I'm doing. But one of the first games I remember playing was Tetris. And I fell in love. There was also like Monopoly, and I was an only child, so for me, playing against AI was like next level cool. I was like, wow, look, friends, everyone. And then they beat me, and I didn't want to play anymore. But like those two are probably my first. I was a Nintendo kid growing up. Kirby's Adventure is still probably one of my favorite games. I actually still take it out every now and again and hook up the Nintendo just to play it. It was one of the first games I played with save points, so that was super cool for me. I didn't have to leave it on all day when I went to school. As for how I got into League is kind of funny too. I've been playing since 2010, I want to say. It's like right before season 1. And my roommate at the time in college, he was like, hey, you should come play this with us. You know, all of us were playing. And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't like playing, you know, like WoW doesn't really interest me. Guild Wars, he's like, it's not really like that. I was like, I'm really not interested still. Like, doesn't sound fun. And he's like, Kitty, let me show you this character. She's got pink hair and she's a pyro. And look at this cute teddy bear. And I was like, all right, kind of interested. All right, we'll give it a shot. And then I played Annie exclusively 1 to 30. And proceeded to buy her with RP the same day, and needed Goth Annie also, so I got the digital collector's pack the same day. And he's like, Kate, she's on free week. I was like, I don't care, I need her, I don't want her to go away. Like, I still remember, it's so cringy because I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, hey, I don't need this health pot, can you take it from me? And he was like, nope, you sell that back. Nope, you can't do that. And like, so from there, I've been playing ever since.
Okay. Now, here's the segue from that.
Uh-oh.
Where we went from Annie like 1 to 30 to Nami and being a mermaid. Where did the love of Nami come from? With like, I mean, you went from pyro to sea creature, like, you know, where did this all start?
So it started like with Annie because I didn't know what else I was doing. And I was like, Annie seems fun, so I went mid with her. Great, cool. And then I saw Sona, and I was like, ooh, a healer. This is fun. So I kind of like migrated from a mid lane main because I played like Annie and Lux for a while, then into Sona. And then Nami came out. I was like, this is a better Sona. I was like, she's got like a loaded kit. Like her heal does damage. This is super cool. And like I have always been a big fan of like sea creatures, love the aquarium and all that jazz. So I was kind of like, wow, this is really cool. Wow, her skins are really cool too, which is also like me being picky. I was like, wow, this koi skin's really pretty. So I started picking her up, and then once I realized that her kit was just like everything I had ever wanted in a support. It's a support that deals damage. Like, come on, super cool. So that's when I became pretty much a Nami one trick, and it's been like that for several years now.
You're plat, right?
Yeah, Platinami is what I've been deemed.
Okay. I mean, you mentioned a support that does damage. We gonna see any Pyke soon from you, or?
Ah, geez, I played him in playtests, and like, I'm that person you don't want on your team because I go for those ults that don't kill anybody. And then I just feel really, really dumb. But if there's any Pyke one tricks that want to show me to actually how to play this champion, I am 100% down.
There you go. Right on. Okay. Ben, did you have anything else you wanted to? Next question.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you kind of hit on it, but I was gonna say, do you ever see yourself going to something new, or is it Nami forever and forever?
Oh geez, it's hard for me to like move off of to another character. Like I like Soraka. She's cool. She's fun. But there's just something about Nami that I'm just very drawn to, and I honestly think it's the W. It's just like
Yeah.
that like yeah, it's like that troll of like damaging them and then just like being a jerk and just healing yourself or healing your ally from it, where it's just like, I took this from you, this is mine now. It just feels really BM. Plus like her laugh is the most BM in the game with that
Top tier.
animation, and then you spam the master on top of it, and it's just
Right.
like, it's beautiful.
If Nami ever
what's
does
your,
get a rework or anything, you have to make sure that she keeps the emote
Oh,
spam.
I'm pretty sure that,
Competition.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that Katie will be like pulled onto into those conversations. Like,
I'll just be crying in the
you've
corner.
got to be one of the top Nami players. Do you know that? Have you looked that up yet?
I have not actually.
Oh, I'd love to see where you stack rank with some of those people out there.
I'd be curious. I know people have hit like 1 million right now. I think I'm at like 600K.
Okay, all right.
Wow. Yeah, that's even.
I don't play
have
as much as I'd like to.
I have like 400K on Jax, but that's insane.
Dang.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of Nami. Like, it's to the point where like when we get an ARAM and someone has Nami, it just comes to me. Like anyone will trade me. It's great.
Yeah, we have a friend like that with Lee Sin.
Oh,
I have a friend like that with Lee Sin too, where we always give it to him.
Yeah,
No.
he's just like, please.
It's like, it's the only thing I'm good at.
So
fine, I'd rather win.
You said you liked the Koi Nami was one of those ones that stuck out to you. What's your favorite Nami skin? Yeah, these tough questions, right?
I thought these were gonna be easy. Honestly, I know it's the most recent, but I'm gonna say Program, just because it has a special spot for me. My mentor, who's also a 3D artist on skins, Katya, she helped me texture the joke fish for the skin, so it's nice to kind of have like something that I helped make into the skin itself, which was really cool for me. I actually, it's so dumb. I was actually tearing up when she was helping me integrate it, because I was like, this is a thing, I did a thing. But to have it be for my favorite champion was something that was a really cool opportunity, and I'm extremely grateful that my team let me do it. Plus, I just think her as a robot is really cool. It's like the first skin that's not a fish.
That's awesome.
Easy question then, or
Okay.
maybe it's harder. Who knows? Favorite non-Nami skin?
Ooh.
Arcade Sona.
Arcade
that was
Sona?
easy.
I know it's an old one. Yeah, Arcade Sona has been one of my favorite skins for years.
Okay.
I love the VFX on it. I love retro VFX. The color scheme is gorgeous, and just like her having like a joystick and stuff for her weapon, I think is super cool. I actually tried to cosplay it back in 2012, 2013, not knowing how to cosplay at all. 6-day project, didn't do the weapon, still went to PAX like that. So that's floating around somewhere, but it was a really, really cool opportunity for me to kind of see how hard cosplay is, but also to show love for still my favorite skin in the game to this day.
Yeah, Arcade Sona is definitely one of those skins that has held up, probably one of the best of some of the older ones, and especially the splash art. If you look back at some of the old splash arts, you'll see some interesting artwork. That one still looks good even today.
Yeah, I think like with Arcade, it's just that like really iconic color scheme, and it's very relatable. So I think pixelated graphics, it's an art style that can age well versus something that's like really, really bright and shiny and like too shiny for our standards today. But yeah, I think she's held up really well.
Yeah, the whole Arcade line is awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Arcade line. That's probably one of my favorites to work on, actually.
I know you can't talk about it, but you hype about some of the skins coming out this year?
Absolutely.
On a scale from 0 to hype, like...
I would say I'm probably like mega hype.
Yeah?
Like there's just like it's because there's more content coming out every year. Like every year we try and put out more and more. So for me, it's 1, challenging, but 2, also like it'll give me opportunities to work on a skin for a champion maybe I haven't worked on before. So for example, with Blood Moon Pike, I hadn't worked on a Pike skin, never really played Pike, but then I learned how Pike worked, which is super cool. I'm hoping that, like once Mord gets a rework, I can work on that skin, like when that time comes to learn how to play new Mord, because I'm going to be left in the dark again, like with most reworks, where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Because I worked on like the what is it? King of Clubs Mord way back in the day, but that was just like a 750, so I didn't really, didn't have to go too ham, but it'd be really cool to like work on new stuff when it comes out, to kind of learn how they work.
You should go talk to Sunny, because I saw him working on the concept
we talked to him about that
for King of Clubs the other day. It looks pretty dope.
Hello.
Yeah, right.
Like, hello, I need to see how my child has come up. Like, that's another thing. Like, not to super derail, but it's also really, really exciting to see skins that I helped on 4 years ago get like a whole new look from a VGU.
Yeah.
I am so excited for Lunar Wraith Morgana, because like back in the day we were so limited with what we could do, and now just kind of seeing her brought to life with like what I would have liked to have seen if we had the technology we have today, and like, had the means to do it. It's so cool. Like, same with like KateyKhaos, it's just next level for what we did.
Yeah.
And like, she's not even that old, but it's just like seeing her even cooler than what we had done. And I know some people, you get tied to stuff, you love the work that you do, but I feel like Champion Update does a pretty stellar job at retaining what the coolness aspect of the skins are, and just bringing them up to modern day standards without like tearing them up and just kind of like, redoing it.
Yeah. I think I don't know if it's consistent, but for the ones I've seen, it's always cool to see some of the less exciting skins get to be transformed to be some of the best skins. For example,
like Exiled Morgana.
Yeah. Well, my best example for this so far is looking at something like Crab Lord Urgot. His original skin was interesting, but the rework was fantastic. It's one of his best skins now.
Yeah,
it's always amazing to see such great quality come out of such a inexpensive skin.
Fun fact: a lot of people on the illustration team specifically was like, "Oh, when we redo this illustration, people are going to ask about the woman in the white dress. That's just something they're going to ask about. Do we keep it? Do we not?" And fun fact: we did. The illustration team did actually keep the woman in the white dress in that illustration. She's in there. She's in there.
Yeah, but who is she?
She's on the boat. You know that boat, like near,
Wait, what
like
are we talking about?
that's Crab Urgot.
Oh,
Crab Urgot.
There's a
on
woman
the
in
splash.
white dress. I never even noticed.
Yeah.
No, I remember in the old Splash. Now I gotta go look.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to look up now.
That is a specific Easter egg that they kept for that reason. And they're like, how the fuck do we keep it in here?
I love that. I love that so much.
Oh, okay. That's her.
Yeah, there's the old one.
Like,
that's such a creepy splash.
It's awful.
But if you look on the ship, it's she's got her hands raised, like she's waving at him. She's on the bow of the ship, I think.
Dun dun dun. Oh, she's little on the ship.
Yeah, she's very small. Yeah.
Oh, is that her?
Yeah, that's the lady in the white dress. That's the Easter egg. They kept it as part of the splash.
It's 1 pixel. Oh no! Wait, is that supposed to be her? I can't tell. I don't know.
Wait. No. Let's see here. Where is she?
I mean, here's a white dot, and here's like a flag.
Wait, is this the right
This is
one?
on ArtStation. Maybe it's not the official one.
Might not be the final one.
Let me try.
Let's see.
This one.
That splash is so cool now.
Yeah. Now we're gonna go look at this.
Dun dun dun. We do. Oh
yeah, there she is. She wasn't in the other one. That's crazy.
Do you see her? Yeah, there she is.
Yeah,
yep.
This is her.
She's on the back of the ship. Yeah, that's supposed to be the lady in the white dress. Yep.
The more you know.
Yep.
And he is really big in this splash, right?
Dude,
That splash is so good. I just
That
I love
was-
splashes that are like above and underwater.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was
I really
my
like the
second-
cosmic splash arts. I have the League of Display program just running
Yeah.
constantly
Yeah.
just to get all sorts of cool new splash arts as my background. And all of these
Aurelian
cosmic
Soul.
ones look fantastic. They're my favorite.
Got in development for that skin for Pix. We're like, oh, it's so cute, and I was like, can we? We're all like, can we just call him Aurelian Small? So that's why the icon is named that.
Oh, that's
Oh, no.
amazing.
It was just like us memeing because we're like, it kind of looks like a space dragon.
Yeah.
But there you
So
have
cute.
it. That's there.
All right, Katie. Back to the hard question.
Yeah, we got really off track. What were we talking about?
But it's all right. So back to the hard question. I think this one will be interesting
Uh-oh.
to talk about. So we talked about this a little bit beforehand. Back in the day, showing my age, right? Back in the day, when a studio would talk to its community, it was through, like newsletters or newspapers, or like there wasn't much in the sense of communication back and forth. But today, with the internet, with social media, like that bridge is extremely short, very small.
Mhm.
What would you say are some of the positive things to come out of that, tight communication loop, that quick turnaround between studio and player base? And what do you think are some of the negative things that may have come out of it?
So let's start with the positives. I think it gives like devs a better understanding with their players. We can have those real-time chats, which can actually lead to really good change for players, and we can also share those changes in real time. I think a good example of this was with Prestige KateyKhaos, where we made changes the same day that things went out to PBE. So you can see that really quick turnaround time. Whereas if we're talking, years ago, we'd see the changes like, oh, maybe next patch we'll get around to it, and we'll do a newsletter about this, and you can understand where we're coming from. And like, it's like, well, the ship's already kind of sailed on that one, so people don't really care as much, or they've already bought it, or we have to maybe even postpone a skin for a patch or two to accommodate these changes. I think this real time has really allowed us to get closer to player bases, to really see the faces behind the devs. It's really hard to kind of get to know someone when it's just one PR person talking behind the screen. You don't really, have heart to hearts. You don't really feel the genuine interactions with your devs. I think it's a really cool thing that, especially at Riot, where everyone's allowed to talk and share their passion, share their work. I think some of the negatives, though, which is like, sometimes we don't necessarily always say the right things. Sometimes we're new and we goof at things, or we share misinformation because we're working cross team. Maybe we don't have the latest information and we're like, oh crap, sorry. Or we share information that isn't always the best news. Like, hey, we need to talk about this game breaking bug. No, you're not going to be super happy about it, but we want to get that information out there. So like the live time is great, but it does come with some hiccups. Plus with everything being on the internet, it's, once it's there, it's out there. So even if you delete your tweet, it's still found, it's still screenshot. Half the stuff I typo and quickly delete still shows up under the next post when I fix it. So there's definitely that like hit or miss, but overall I think it's a positive gain to be able to talk to players like in real time, or for our official channels to tweet stuff in real time.
I gotcha.
Yeah, you were saying something about how it helps the game company become less of a faceless company and more of a group of actual developers and people. And that's definitely one of the reasons why we started this show, is to give more of a face to the people who make these games and less of a I mean, even seeing somebody on Reddit or seeing somebody on Twitter isn't always the interaction the community is looking for. So we always love to have people come on and sort of have people have a chance to look at them and see, hey, these are actually real people. They're not just money making companies.
Right, we're not robots.
Yeah, they're
We're not
working
just
as hard as
robots.
possible to make as best of a product as possible for you.
Yeah, and it's also cool because the artists are allowed to share their work that they work on. They can share their portfolio pieces, so it's not just like Riot made this. It's like technically, yeah, Riot made this, but you can see the faces and the passion behind all the people who worked on it. For VFX, like Riot Isaac, for example, does a stellar job of tweeting out the VFX that he made for stuff, so that you can see the behind the scenes of this is how I did it, this is how it's put together. Or Riot Omu does a lot for animation for skins, where you can see the process. I think he just put something out about paper skins and how we got the paper to fold and look right, and that was a big team effort. So I think that just brings in like next level genuine strats for any company to kind of let their devs talk. That said, there is the caveat of like, please make sure that you say the right things, that you're not being a jerk, and like that you keep keep it clean, basically.
Yeah.
But like for Riot specifically, we have like a course that we go through just to kind of like chat about social media, chat about like what good looks like and things like that. So you're always prepped, but you also always have people on deck who can proof your tweets, who can, help you before you post something. Or if something goes horribly wrong that you weren't intending, there's also someone who can help you kind of like dig yourself back up. Whether that's like an apology.
Coach.
Exactly. Like we have people who are willing to help, because the last thing we want to do is scare somebody away from, interacting with our players, because it can be super valuable.
Yeah, jumping back off what you said about all the cool people who work at Riot who get to share their work and not just say, hey, Riot made this. One of the biggest things that I think we see is about that is champion designers. We get to know who's making each of these new champions and what champions they've made in the past. So it kind of gives the community a bit of a chance to guesstimate what type of champion this would be, or how their play style would be. One of the more infamous ones. Yeah, one of the more infamous ones, certainly T. He has a track record of making these very intricate, very high skilled cap champions that aren't always the most balanced. But it's always fun. It's like a little game. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I think it's great that they're so like open to explaining the choices. I really like how August, for example, puts out change lists for the like stuff that he wants to put on PvE next, or if he's like, here are the ratios that I'm changing. One of the tweets that really stands out to me was, hey, Morgana mains, like I'm gonna be looking at like little tweaks to her, so now's your time to speak up if there's something you've always really wanted on her. Just like that very genuine upfront, like, hey, throw me your ideas right now, I'm looking at her, what is some quality of life stuff that we could potentially give to her. I think that's super cool. Instead of just like, hey, here's Morgana, cool, like we did some changes to her, give us your gameplay feedback on PvE. Instead, he was like, before I even dive in, what is super important to you. And I think as someone else who works at Riot, I really admire that type of behavior.
Yeah, we see I saw some of that through, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he's one of the guys who works on the walk cycles for older champions, and he always makes a tweet. Yeah, he always makes a tweet when he's working on like an old champion like Fiora or Jax
Quinn,
or Blitzcrank.
Zyra.
Yeah, Quinn. Yep. And he gets a lot of good feedback from the community, where he gets to show the community before something goes out, hey, we're working on this to make the champion look a little less stiff or something like that. And that's always very, very, it's crazy to think that there's a company out there that's has that level of interaction, because League of Legends is such a broad game. It covers so many different aspects of the gaming culture, and to have a game on that scale still come down and say, hey, people who play this character, what do you think of this change we're making to that character? And those feedback actually making a difference, that's almost unheard of. And it's really
I agree. Yeah, it's like there's a lot of games who they'll make changes, and like obviously they play test them internally and they make sure that that's the direction they want to go in. But I think there's something to be said for a team who like champions who cares enough about like a walk cycle to make sure that that still feels core to the champion, where any company could just put out a new walk cycle and be like, hey guys, we updated this champion, cool. Whereas he not only just posts it, but he'll go through the comments, and that's also really cool, where he has those discussions. It's not just like a one and done post of here it is, guys, cool. He has those conversations with players to see what works and what doesn't. I think the LeBlanc changes for her walk was something that there was a lot of feedback about, and he was, diving into those threads, and he really spent the time to understand the players and what they wanted from that and what they didn't want.
You've been quiet for a little while, Larry. You thinking about anything in particular?
Zorbin. Just thinking about it.
Yeah, I feel it.
Unfortunately, I'm one of those roles, I guess, that we don't have a lot of direct contribution to, or at least our contributions are not normally seen by the final product. So, or at least my old role. Old role. Still things working. I'll make an announcement time.
Big news
I
coming
think
soon.
you do a good job though of like career stuff. I think that that's something that a lot of writers maybe don't have that experience to speak to outside of their own like their own discipline. I think what you do on Twitter, where you're just talking about general career stuff, or here's some resources for you. I think that's really rad and really valuable. People who are in high school, college, and looking to pursue game design in one way or another.
You've also started this little trend that I really enjoy, where you give a bit of info about a champion and their backstory or their bio or something about that.
Yeah, the lore stuff that I have no idea about.
That's really cool.
The league lore, yeah. That's part of that. Whenever I said the announcement, whenever it's 100% official, I'll be able to probably talk more about it. But yeah, that's part of.
We'll
that's
have a
part
dev
of that.
type episode about that.
Oh snap! But yeah.
I'm gonna learn so much about lore.
All the lore.
We've covered pretty much everything we have written down. Let me think.
Yeah.
Did you have anything that you would like to talk about in particular, Katie?
Oh geez.
And you thought my questions were hard.
The open-ended ones are as difficult.
Yeah. I think like for me, the one thing that I like to tell players a lot is whenever you're on a team of like, champion or skins, like people are like, oh wow, like this was the concept artist on the team, or this was the designer, and like they're, like the frontliner, they're the name that everybody knows, which is super, super cool. Like they're the ones who kind of got the ball rolling. I think it's really important to keep in mind that every team is at least, like 10 or more people who brought something to life. So we're talking, any given skin has a concept artist. They've got a 3D artist who textures and models. They've got a VFX artist, a sound effects artist. Sometimes we need a designer if we have script side stuff that we're changing. We've got QA, and then even outside of that, we've got the illustrators. We've got a dev manager. We've got a product owner. We also have people store side who are helping us, set everything up in the store catalog. We've got like teams of testers. It's really a team project at the end of the day, and there's a lot of work and a lot of faces that go behind any particular thing that we make, whether it's like a 4 to 6 week 1350 versus Lux that took probably like 9 or 10 months to get her out the door, and from there it's like it's grueling sometimes, especially when you have like new form changing tech like with Lux. That was absurd, especially when you had a special formula to get to each form, and trying to learn those when they're first actually not working the right way was really confusing. It's like, I know that this and this should equal this, but it's not, and I don't know if I'm wrong or they're wrong. So it's just like the times and trials for it. But with every piece of content that comes out, there's like a well-driven force of people behind it to bring it to life.
What's one thing that you'd like to see improved upon or changed in the games industry as a whole?
Oh, geez. Honestly, like this is gonna sound selfish, but I think just like integrating QA a little bit more for a lot of companies. Like I said, Turbine was a little bit more black box, a little more waterfall, where we were kind of like the last step of production. I would like to see QA being integrated more into the concepting phase or the brainstorming phase, because I believe there's a lot of value in having someone who's like quality control or the voice of the player from start to finish, because there's more opportunity for us to call out potential problems and changes, which can ultimately save us time which can then also give us the idea of, well, we have a little bit of extra time in our time box. What can we do? Maybe that's a new idol. Maybe that's a new emote. Maybe it's Rek'Sai on a jet ski, because that was not originally in our scope. But our animator was like, wouldn't it be cool if? And again, we had that time because we planned ahead. We knew what we were getting into, and we called out a lot of these risks early on. Whereas if we hadn't, we might be like, well, this animation's still really wonky, and we can't really add this extra run, or we can't do this cool stuff. I think there's just a lot of value in like having the team as a whole involved, like throughout the whole process.
Yeah, and we've heard similar sentiments echoed from the other QA people we've had on the show, where they just wish that other studios would be a little bit more they would integrate that step of the process a little bit more into the company of itself, because something that we've heard a bit in the past is QA people sort of get treated as computers, or sort of there's these separated, because a lot of them are working on contracts, right? So they're not.
Yep, that's where I started.
Company, and they're not technically making this game, and they don't get treated like part of the team. So it's always cool.
I think Riptide said it best right there. It's like QA kind of just gets shafted sometimes, and yeah, it's definitely true, and it feels bad. Because at the end of the day, like, we're the ones that make sure, like, we call out the things that could break the game, or like, make people super unhappy. Whereas like, it's an integral part of game design, and like, people are like, oh, someone is just QA. Like, you're not just QA. You're a dev. You're part of the dev process, and like, you are important, and people need you, which I think sometimes QA can go underappreciated. At Riot, I definitely don't feel that way. I definitely feel like, QA is one with the rest of the team. We get praised just like all the other devs. If things go wrong, we take the fall as a team. It's not QA didn't catch this. Like, what the heck is going on? It's like, oh no, we missed this as a team. Let's figure out where we missed it and how we can fix it. Which is very hard to come by, I feel like, in the QA industry, where kind of it's like, well, QA should make sure that everything is fixed, blah, blah, blah. Like, nope, at Riot, like, we rise as a team, we fall as a team.
Is there any other companies that you feel like are making the right steps towards that? Or do you not really have much insight into that?
I actually don't have too much insight into like how a lot of other QA teams are working, like outside of Turbine, which was like also a very small team. Our team was probably like 10 testers, but we also, like, at least towards the end of when I was working there, we put QA on different pods, and we tried to have them working a little bit more closely, as opposed to us just working. QA used to just be in a room by ourselves, and we would test and we would play test, and then we were kind of like, well, this isn't working. So our lead pushed us into working on different pods, so that, when I eventually moved to UI testing, I was sitting with all the UI developers, and I could say, this icon doesn't read like a shopping cart, or this icon doesn't read like what you're trying to have it be. I think if you did this, it would look better. They were like, oh crap, you're right. This makes sense. So the team grew and evolved, but it was more of a, hey, let me show you how we could do this better and what the benefits are. And I think if the team is willing to see that, then the changes can be made. But if the team isn't bought into the idea, just shoving QA on your team isn't really going to help too much if you're not willing to like see eye to eye with QA and treat them like you would any other dev.
All right, well, that's pretty much everything I had on my docket. We covered, I think, most of what Larry wanted to talk about. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Larry?
Nami sucks.
Wow, all right, we're done here. No.
No, that's great. Thank you, Katey, for coming on. It's been fun talking with you.
Yeah, this is really fun. Like, I don't get to geek out about QA too often, so it's a nice change.
All right.
If you want to check out Katey, she has a Twitter account at KateyAnthony. You can see on the bottom of the screen. But I have a feeling that you probably already know who she is if you're watching this podcast.
Come say hi. Send Nami love.
Make sure to check out Dev Dive. We're on all of the major podcast hosts now: Google, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher. Just search Dev Dive on there, and you can check us out through there. And if you like to see this type of thing live, check us out at twitch.tv/Nighthawk20000. This is where we stream live. We don't have a perfect schedule just yet for Dev Dive. It's sort of coming as we get the time and the guests to come on, but we're shooting for once, maybe every other week or something similar to that. So make sure you keep up with that. And thanks again for listening, and have a great weekend.